Hi there. Welcome. I decided to make this video today because I wanted to talk about why the anger algorithm is not anger management. I was telling a while ago, I was speaking to a psychiatrist about my work, and I described the anger algorithm process to her, and she got it right away. She understood the power of anger and how important it is for us to feel it and express it instead of suppress it, and the value of anger's wisdom. And so then she introduced me to someone else, and then she said, Vanessa is, and she kind of looked at me and squinted, and she said, you don't do anger management, something else. And I said, yes, of course, right. So my history with anger and rage, I was born into rageful families. My soul chose rageful families. And it was intense. I was around adults who at any moment could or would explode into a rageful outburst. And not just that, there was an energy and a frequency in them that I could feel as a child. I was extremely sensitive, and I was terribly shy, believe it or not, painfully shy. I shrunk myself. I did lots of things to survive in my home and to protect myself. And I made myself very small. But this energy, I felt it growing up from the adults, and it would get acted out, unfortunately, on the children. And the adults would act out their anger and rage on each other, and they would act out their anger and rage on children in the house. I was raised by my grandmother, by the way. And so, and my grandmother's home was just full of people all the time. There were lots of people living in the house at any given time, and it fluctuated. So I was around this energy of rage just under the surface. Fear, lack, scarcity, meanness. It was difficult. And I was afraid. I spent the better part of my childhood being afraid to really express myself and to express my anger. And it wasn't until I turned, going on 15, between 14 and 15, that we all know that's a tender age right there, teenage years, we push back. And I decided to fight back. And I decided to use my rage because I had rage in me. I was rageful about a lot of things. I was in rage. I didn't know it at the time. It was very unconscious, but I was rageful that my mother died when I was 3. I was rageful that my father was a raging alcoholic and couldn't get it together to take care of me. I was rageful about so many things. I didn't know it at the time, though. And in, how that showed up really as a child for me was that I was extremely depressed. So, however, at the age of 14 and 15, I made a very conscious choice to start fighting back. And there was one family member in particular who I started to fight back with. And I used my rage just as intensely as I had learned from the adults around me, to use it to protect myself and to use it to fight back. And it was extremely painful because that's not how I wanted to be in the world. I didn't want to be like my family. And so when I would react and have explosive, rageful outbursts as a teenager, it was immediately followed by shame, humiliation, regret, hatred of myself for acting that way. I did not want to act like my family. I didn't want to be mean and cruel and unkind. I wanted kindness. I longed for kindness. And I made myself be kind. I made myself be happy. I chose the path of optimism and didn't want to look at this shadowy fucking darkness in my life. So, eventually I moved out of my house when I was 18, my grandmother's house when I was 18. I lived with family members for a brief period of time. And then when I was 19, I joined the military. And it wasn't until I actually left my family environment that I realized how traumatic it was. And I knew around 18, or I'm sorry, around 19, 20, I could really feel the depression in me. And I knew I needed help back then. I didn't know what to do. And help at that time, back in the early 90s, was for just crazy people. That was what I grew up with. You don't need help. You're not crazy. Oh, come on, just forget about the past. Let it go. Well, I tried to do those things and I couldn't. And so there was a lot brewing in me at that age, 19, 20 years old. And then I was in an intimate relationship and had a rageful outburst. And like I said, I had rageful outbursts all throughout my teen years. I had a high school boyfriend at the time, very violent, explosive, rageful relationship. It was so toxic. It was so unhealthy. And I had told myself, if I refuse to be in violent, destructive relationships, and if I ever act out ragefully and violently, that's it. I'm out. I'm gone. So when I turned in 1920, when I was in the military, I was in a relationship, and I ended up having a rageful outburst, and I slapped him in his face. And it broke my heart. I burst into tears and I thought, I cannot do this. This is not how I want to be in my life. So on top of battling depression and trying to reconcile my past and my trauma and trying to hide and closet away my rage, I was in turmoil. I was in a lot of turmoil. And what ended up happening with my rage is that I turned it onto myself and I engaged in serious self-destructive behaviors. And because I didn't know what else to do, I didn't go to therapy. I didn't get any help. I wasn't on a spiritual path then. And the way that I tried to manage my rage and control it, and again, this is super unconscious, is I exercised the shit out of my body. I was lifting weights when I was a teenager. So in the military, I would run, I would lift weights. I was just like an avid workout-aholic. And then I was a workaholic. I was a dispersing clerk in the military. I actually loved my job. I would work for hours in the office on the ship. And then I was a binger. And that was my way of coping. Again, I didn't know all of this at the time. And then finally, when I got out of the military, it was a big transition for me because I wanted to go to college. That was my dream. That was my way out. And I was the first person in 3 generations of Mexican Americans on my mother and family's side to go to college. So it was a big endeavor. It was huge. And so I went to college, but that transition out of the military to junior, I actually started at a junior college. It was intense for me. And I fell into a depression. Now, I needed therapy and needed help, and I was focused on my depression. I wasn't focused on my rage. I was too ashamed. I didn't even really know that rage was the problem. I thought the depression was the problem. I thought my past was my problem. Losing my mom was my mom dying, my dad being a raging alcoholic, like all these other things. I thought it was the problem. So even though my therapist knew I'd have these rageful outbursts, I wasn't in therapy to try, to deal with my rage. It was more about dealing with my depression and my past. So what I did to deal and control and manage my rage was I engaged in all of these things to try to control it, to try to contain it, to try to hide it. I exercised, I meditated, I would breathe, I'd go on spiritual retreats. I was in therapy for like the better part of my life. I did so many things to try to manage, to try to control it, to just closet it away. And fast forward years later, after all my healing and all the, I was in completed undergrad school, went to graduate school, got a master's degree. I mean, just like excelled in academics beyond anything I could have ever imagined. Created a lot of success in my life, healed my depression, went away out of all of that, all of the work I had been doing. My binging had gone away. I thought my rage was under fucking control. Lots of things happened for me. Lots of healing that took place in therapy and all of the different ways that I was taking care of myself and healing myself. But in my early 30s, after graduate school, it was time for my heart to open, and I was ready for a deeply committed relationship, and I fell in love and got married. Well, sure enough, in that first year of me being in a relationship with this person, I had another rageful outburst. And it was a problem. And, this person wanted to be with me. This person wanted to stay with me. And he said, you got to work on your rage, and we have to work on this together. And I said, okay, and I will. So we got married. During that time, again, I kept working on myself, but I was controlling, suppressing until I couldn't take it anymore. And eventually I'd still have a rageful outburst, and I'd still have to work on it, and we'd still have to work through it. And it was still a problem. So after a period of time in this relationship, in my marriage, there was so much trust, there was so much security, there was so much stability, there was so much love that it actually opened up my heart even more. And because I was in this place of safety in my body, my rage resurfaced again later in my life, later in this marriage, later in the relationship. And I would do things. So I got to a place where I was aware of my anger and rage. I'm really fucking angry right now. I need to leave and I need space. And I would remove myself from the situation. And then I'd breathe my way through it as tears would run down my face. Or maybe I would vent, or maybe I would just like drive or walk or do something to just try to move the energy. But it just wasn't enough for me. And I started really questioning this part of me, because I had, and this came through building my awareness through a meditation practice. It was really my meditation practice and this awareness of suppressing my anger and rage that it came to the surface. And, in conjunction with this love that I felt in my marriage. So I knew this literally came from my belly, that I was holding back in my life. I was holding back. I was holding back my sexuality, my emotions, myself. I knew I wasn't fully showing up. And I knew that it was connected to anger and rage because of how it kept surfacing during my meditation practice. And so I was like, there has to be a way for me to own this part of myself, this extremely rageful, violent part of myself. There has to be a way to own it. There has to be a way to feel it. There has to be a way to move through it without hurting myself or anyone around me. And so I started searching. And then that's when I developed and discovered the anger algorithm. And as soon as I worked through the steps, writing them out, reading them out loud, it was the answer finally. So the anger algorithm isn't anger management because there's no controlling and managing it. Now, when I think about control, in my mind, from my beliefs about what control is as a child, control yourself, knock it off, stop it, control my experience, don't behave a certain way, stop my feelings. So that's what I think about control. Whereas the anger algorithm actually gives me permission to access this part in me that I have repressed and stuffed away and have hidden and suppressed for the better part of my life that has caused me great, great, great suffering. So the algorithm is about giving yourself, myself, permission to express this part in me. I do it very mindfully. I do it very consciously. And this is something that is done alone, privately, without involving anyone. And so it's permission for me to be with this part of myself that I actually hated. And it gives me permission to express this part that's like dark, evil, and it's like, I'm smiling because I'm so happy that I gave myself permission to do this, because I didn't realize how much juiciness, how much healing there was under my anger and rage. Anger and rage, and I say these, rage is like, like up here on the barometer of the anger spectrum, and anger is like below it. And then frustration and all of that. But its wisdom is, it's been so enlightening for me to realize what has come out of this process that I developed. I mean, the healing that has happened in my life and for my clients, I didn't know. And what I did know when I developed the algorithm, and there was like a relief. Not only was there permission, but there was a relief, and there was an understanding finally, a real understanding, not rooted in blaming and critical judging and shaming, but a real understanding of what was going on for me. Why the fuck was I so enraged about something that didn't quite make sense? And so that's why I say the anger algorithm is not anger management. Now, I want to make sure I'm clear on this, is that this process isn't about making my anger and rage go away. And that's what I try to do. I try to make my anger and rage fucking disappear, and it was exhausting and depleting. It's about really transforming how I relate to anger and rage, and transmuting this powerful, sacred, wise energy into what I need. And that comes from my heart. It comes from my heart. So this process, it's not about making the anger and the rage go away. It's about helping me understand how to relate to it in a radically different way than from what I had learned as a child. Now, do I still get angry and enraged? Yeah, I do. But I say this, the triggers are far and few between. I'm way more patient, way more understanding, way more empathic. And I know what to do in the moment with my angry feelings. And so it's not about reacting. It's not about reacting. It's about responding. And it's because I know myself on a much deeper level. I know that anger and rage, it's in my being, it's in my disposition. This energy is here. So when I am angry in the moment, I simply name it. I'm really angry right now. I need trust. I'm really angry right now. I need space. I'm really angry right now. I need cooperation and understanding. I have to leave right now and take care of myself. And so I will go and take care of myself, and I will work through the algorithm, and I will give myself permission to have those feelings. And sometimes it still takes a bit. Like sometimes I still suppress, and I have to, and I notice I'm like, whoa, I'm suppressing right now. I'm actually fucking angry about this situation. So that's why the anger algorithm is an anger management, because it's permission. It's permission. And the anger algorithm is a multi-dimensional process that really engages all aspects of who you are: your body, your heart, your mind, your soul, your energy. It is powerful, potent medicine. And I'll talk more about that. You know, people use medicine these days: ayahuasca, ketamine, psilocybin, all of these things, to have an experience to bring us, you know, closer to our shadows and release them and bring us deeper into the longing of our heart. Well, the anger algorithm is potent medicine, except that you're not ingesting anything, but you're actually engaging you and yourself. Like anger and rage are as powerful as ayahuasca and all of the other medicine that exists in this world. So and I'll definitely make another video to talk more about that. So that's what I want to share with you about the anger algorithm, and that why it's not anger management and why it's something radically different. And the beauty about the algorithm for me is that I just dove deeper into my healing. And the healing, right? The ultimate healing here, and what has been revealed over the years, has been the healing of my inner child. So these moments of giving myself permission to fucking vent and work through the algorithm and, you know, have a tantrum. And I say this with deep respect, like having a tantrum was, I'm allowing my inner child to express herself. And as I observe and hold space, my higher self is witnessing. So, and I am giving her a voice to speak about what she's angry about and what she needs and what she wants. So it's really juicy, deep, powerful work. If you are curious about the anger algorithm and you want to learn how to work through it, move through it, and you want me to guide you and facilitate this process for you, I am offering a 2-day immersive here in San Francisco at Quantum Integral Healing Arts in May. It's on May 20th to the 21st, small group for women only. And I will be facilitating the anger algorithm in person. I'm super excited about it. I haven't offered an in-person event since the pandemic. So it's very exciting. And it's sacred space. So if you want to learn the anger algorithm, you want to learn how to transmute angry energy and turn it into really the light that's within you for what you really want. And so that you can communicate what it is that you really want, especially in your relationships, come from a radically different place, an empowered, grounded, powerful, rageful warrior place. You want to learn this, join me. And if you have questions, you want to chat, you're not sure, you're hesitant, you're afraid, all these things, reach out to me and I'd be happy to connect with you. So thank you so much for watching and listening. I was very vulnerable today. I shared a lot, and yeah, I hope you got something out of this, and this resonates with your heart and your being and your soul. and hopefully it has touched you in some way for your healing. Okay, have a beautiful day, and I'll see you soon.